This is the homework video for lesson 6.6. We're starting on number 3. So we're going to find an equation for the line shown at the right. I'm going to go ahead and write down those 2 points. You don't have to do that. But this whole lesson is about writing an equation from 2 points. And so what we don't have is a slope. Now you can try and figure out your slope here on the graph, but because those dots are sitting kind of in between lines and stuff like that, it's probably not the best idea. So your slope formula, you're going to subtract your y's and you're going to subtract your x's, and you want to go the same direction. So as I look at this, I'm going to go ahead and go from left to right. So on top, I'm going to go ahead and put the 16 minus 1, because remember, this is your y and this is your y. This is your x, this is your x. Now, since I went left to right, 16 minus 1, I got to do the same thing on the bottom. So negative 6 minus 4. So I'm going to get 15 on the top. I get negative 10 on the bottom. You can plug that in your calculator and simplify it. Okay, but that's 3 over 2. You're dividing by 5, and it's negative. So my slope, my m, equals negative 3 over 2. Now, maybe you turn that to a decimal. It's a nice decimal, negative 1.5. Perfectly fine. And we're going to go ahead and plug into that equation. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Now, when you do this, you can pull from either one of these points. They both will work. They'll both simplify to the same thing. So since this has a negative in it, I'm going to just avoid it. This has 2 positives. That makes my life easy. So I'm going to go ahead and just run with that one. So y minus my y value, which is 1. Slope, negative 1.5. X minus my x value, which is 4. All right, and we want to go ahead and simplify this all the way down into our y equals mx plus b. So we're going to go ahead and multiply here. So negative 1.5x. Negative times a negative is a positive. 1.5 times 4, 6. And we're almost done, but I still have that minus 1 over here, so I'm going to have to add 1 to get rid of it. So now y equals negative 1.5x plus 7. And that's the basics of everything we're doing here in this section. So moving on to number 4. Same thing here. So subtract my y's on top. Now I noticed that I'd rather go 16 minus 0 and 7 minus 3 to keep everything positive. So that's the direction I'm going to go. So I went this way with my y's, so I got to go that way with my x's. So I get 16 over 4, simplifies nicely to 4. So y minus my y value. Now, looking at these two, I'm going to go ahead and pick this one because there's no negatives. And I'm going to be putting a 0 in here for y. And so that's really just going to disappear, and I'm just going to end up with a y equals on that side. Just saves me a step. Slope goes in 4, and then x minus. Now, since I chose the 0, I got to choose the x that goes with it, and that's 3. Go ahead and simplify now. 4x minus 12. And I'm done. Okay, number 5, same idea. If I go from left to right, I'm going to get a negative on top, but I will get a positive on the bottom. And if I go the other direction, I'm going to get a positive on the top and a negative on the bottom. So it doesn't matter. So I'm going to do 11 minus 5 on top. So I went this direction. Got to make sure I do the same direction on the bottom. 4 minus 10. Okay, so I get 6 on top and I get negative 6 on the bottom. That simplifies to negative 1. Plugging in y minus. Doesn't matter which one of these points I use. They're both positives. So I'll just go ahead and use the first one. So 11 is my y value. Slope is negative 1. X minus my x value of 4. Go ahead and distribute. So I get negative x plus 4. And I'm going to add 11 now to get it off this side. So y equals negative x plus 15. All right, going to number 7. So So we're going to write an equation for the line that produced this table of values. So you have all of these x's and y's. So these are a whole bunch of points. You can choose any two of them. If this is a line, they're all going to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the first two that I see. So 30 and 27 and 40 and 32. Okay, I just used the first two lines to grab my points, but you could use any of them here. So first thing I got to do is subtract. I see that if I go this way with both the top and the bottom, it stays positive, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So 32 minus 27 for my y's and 40 minus 30 for my x. So I get 5 on top and I get 10 on the bottom, so this is 1/2, and if you want to call it 0.5, that's perfectly fine. So when I plug in y minus, I'll go ahead and use this, 27.5 is my slope, and then x minus my x value that matches the 27, so it's got to be the 30. Go ahead and multiply, so 0.5x minus, when you multiply by a half, it just takes half, so 15. And I'm going to add 27. And now I have y by itself, so it's 0.5x plus 12. Number 8. And then we're going back to number 2. Find an equation for the line with an x-intercept of 7 and a y-intercept of 3. So if it helps, sketch a little graph here. X-intercept of 7 is right here. That's the x value of 7, and the y value is 0, and the y-intercept is 3. It hits y at 3, so the y value is 3, and the x is 0, right? We're not negative or positive, it's that. So your 2 points are 0, 3, and 7, 0. Doesn't matter which order you put those in. And from that, now I can find a slope and plug into that equation. So I'm going to go this direction. You can go the other direction, doesn't matter. Subtract my y's, 3 minus 0. Subtract my x's, 0 minus 7. Now just looking at those lines that I put there, you can see there's your slope. And you could actually count over and get your slope from there and plug right in. But the slope formula works real nice right here as well. So it's 3 over negative 7, which is just the same as negative 3/7. Because this was down 3 over 7. Plugging right in. Doesn't really matter which one you use. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose the one that has the 0 right here. So it's y minus 0 instead of the x, because that will eliminate an extra step for me. But you don't have to do it that way. Slope drops in, negative 3/7 times x minus 7. So again, this 0 just drops off. All I got to do is distribute. So it's negative 3/7 x. Negative and a negative is positive. And when you multiply by this whole number 7, and there's a 7 in the denominator, they're going to cancel. And this is just 3. Of course, you can run that through the calculator. All right, we are going back to number 2 now. Suppose a 15-minute call costs this much and a 30-minute call costs this much. Find a formula, which means write an equation, relating the two things, minutes and dollars. So they gave you two matching pieces of information. 15 minutes is 5.26. 30 minutes is 10.24. Because this is linear, okay, we know that this is not going to fluctuate in terms of cost. It's always based on your minutes. Okay, we can go ahead and set up an equation. So we're going to subtract our y's. I'm going to go this direction. 10.24 minus 5.26, and then 30 minus 15. So $10.24 minus $5.26. I get $4.98 over 15. If I go ahead and divide that in my calculator, I'm going to get that decimal, and I'm going to go ahead and use that 0.332. That's my slope. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in y minus either one. I'll use this, 5.26. Slope, 0.332 times x minus the matching x value, which is 15. All right, a little bit of work to do to simplify all this here. So 0.332x minus, and go ahead and multiply times 15. It's 4.98. And I bring this down, and I'm going to add 5.26. So I still have 0.332x. So this is a negative 4.98 plus 5.26. And that's a positive 0.28. And there is my formula. All right, jumping over to 14. You gotta do 14 and 15. What's the equation of the line that goes through 0.55? And the slope is negative 3/5. So this is pretty simple. Plug it into the equation. We've already got the slope. So y minus my y value of 5, slope negative 3/5 times x minus my x value of 5. Go ahead and distribute. So it's negative 3/5 x. Negative and a negative is positive. When you multiply a whole number 5 by a fraction with the denominator of 5, they cancel, and you're just left with a 3. Of course, you can plug that in the calculator. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides to clear it out, and I get negative 3/5 x plus 8. And the last question, number 15. We're going to graph, so I'm going to draw a quick sketch here. Y equals 3x plus 9 by using the slope and the intercept. So I'm going to count by twos here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Keep going. 12, 14, 16. I'm going to do the same thing this way. Actually, I'm going to go by ones this way. Not a right or wrong way necessarily. So my intercept is 9. That means I'm starting at 9. Hits the y-axis at 9. And my slope is 3 over 1. That means up 3 over 1. So from 9, I go up to 10, 11, 12. That's up 3 over 1. Up from 12 to 15 over 1. On and on and on. And I'm just going to quickly sketch that. And it looks like this. The important part is knowing that you start at your intercept of 9, and then you use your slope to go up and over. And if it was negative, you would go down and over.